What up, YouTube? It's your boy Javon, and I'm back with another installment of Context Matters. During this segment, I want to kind of expand on a topic that uh, tended to ruffle quite a few feathers in my immediate family some years back. And I feel like today is a good day to kind of like put the truth on the table and kind of share, my perspective on the matter, and then also to give a lot of my current colleagues, friends, loved ones that know me now in my more, polished and reformed um, mode now, a glimpse into, the kind of trials and tribulations that I've experienced that kind of have helped me to come up with ways to reinvent myself and to move forward, chasing success. And so I always remind people that meet me now, who you see as a very, very genuine and very, very real person. Ain't nothing fake about me. But, I come from very, very humble beginnings. And, for those that are listening, I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm a whole grown man that still has a little broken boy inside of him that will never go away. What I've learned to do is to be able to, draw from the best parts of the little boy and to be able to use the, negative emotions and, the troubled spirit that, once plagued the little boy to kind of motivate me to, try and be a better person, one, but more importantly, to be able to identify and connect with other individuals that are broken in their own way. And so, just recent circumstances, have kind of brought this back to the forefront of my consciousness and something that I, had to address yesterday very, very briefly. And so I wanted to bring it to YouTube just so that you guys can understand that, there's definitely layers and layers to a person. And no matter how well put together a person may be or appear to be on the outside, there within lies a lot of, ups and downs, smiles and frowns, and for a lot of people, there is a lot of traumatic experiences that help to shape who we are. And so I wanted to touch on a topic that seemed to really, anger a few of my loved ones. My decision not to attend my mother's funeral a few years ago. And so I want to put a little bit of context to it. One, because the fact of the matter is that, a story is a story. Interesting story is an interesting story. And if you don't tell your own story, somebody else will. And so I'm not really of the mind that I want people to define my narrative and to try to, create a certain character for me or have people think of me a certain way. I can do that myself, And so I feel like I'm transparent enough and I'm real enough with myself. I know my shortcomings. I've really, really examined them and I kind of have, came to conclusions that some of them I'm ready to let go of, but a few of them are going to always be with me, and that's just the way it is. And so, for anyone that when I said I didn't attend my mother's funeral kind of fretted or was like, "Oh my gosh," I totally get that some people under no circumstances feel like you should ever do something, to that extent, but there's a lot of back history that goes along with it that I want to kind of, briefly touch upon. And so the first thing that I want to, make plain and make clear is that regardless of the ups and downs of my mother and I's relationship and the lack thereof, in many, points in my life, the bottom line is that we did have an opportunity to come together and to communicate and to reconcile and to ask questions and to gain, more clarity about how we felt about one another in any number of spaces in our life. And so I don't owe it to anyone to really explain myself. However, I do share, bits and pieces of my life. I have had the privilege of having individuals pour out to me the things that, go on in their lives on a day-to-day basis or the things that otherwise they wouldn't feel comfortable speaking on. And so some of that is that, I share myself too. I share my story as well. And they can see that I'm genuinely not out to find, bits and pieces of stuff to, betray them with. So I'll never share with anyone publicly something that I'm not prepared to deal with the, blowback or the positive or negative, commentary about it. And so this is one that was a long time in the coming. And so Today is the birthday or the born day, as some people call, of my mother, Gloria Jean Mosby. So it's only appropriate to really, put this squarely on the table so that if nothing else, for people that still feel contrary about, what it is that I'm going to say and what my decision was in that, you can have that, but I'm undeterred. I know my limitations. I know why I made that decision. And, if I could go back and do it again, I would do the same thing. So, for those of you that know me, you know that my mother and I had a very tumultuous, relationship. At one point, she was the apple of my eye. And then all of a sudden, things changed. My mother had me when she was 13 years old, and so by virtue of that, life was not going to be fair for her or for I. And so I had no choice in the matter. I pretty much had to go with the flow. But by the time I got to be around 8, 9 years old, that's when I really started to notice that the type of behaviors and the things that she was engaging into her lifestyle had changed, and it began to dramatically, impact me. So at this point in time, I'm not going to, go into the details of that. We'd be here forever for that. But what I will say is that I had the opportunity to really sit down and speak to her and to gain some perspective from her angle and her lens as to how her upbringing had adversely affected her, and she even acknowledged, which I was searching for a long time, which I was wanting to hear for a long time, that she had failed me in many capacities, and so we came to an understanding. Good, bad, or indifferent, she gave birth to me, and without her, I wouldn't be here. But there's many points in times where she chose to choose everything else over mothering me, and so I held her accountable for that to the best of my ability at those particular points in time. You know, um, I would say that maybe about 6 or 7 months before she passed away, we had a series of real serious conversations. And my sticking point with her was not at all about what happened in my childhood, because she did a very, very thorough job of explaining to me what she was up against and, what befell her. And so I went from not knowing and resenting her for not being present in my life consistently, and for the different things that she exposed me to that no child should be exposed to. I went from having that standpoint to really having some empathy for the things that she had to endure and the things that pushed her towards her lifestyle that she chose to engage in. And so just being able to hear and put those pieces together, gave us a solid ground to stand upon. I told her, hey, at this point in time, we can't go back in time, and will never really have that mother son relationship, but what I needed from you was to be a grandmother, because the one thing that I did have in the absence of my mother was a grandmother. It wasn't the best situation. She provided me with shelter. She provided me with a place to stay, some security, in a very, very unstable point in my life. And, in her own way, she showed, love here and there. So I don't really have much that I want to expand upon about her, but I do know that, when I was growing up, I really looked up to my grandmother and was very appreciative of the things she had, done for me. I didn't know all of the 3 degree of separation things that pretty much was her decision making that kind of caused my mother to do X, Y, Z, which had a negative effect on me. But I wanted my children to at least be able to have a grandmother. And so we found a common ground on that, but she wasn't able to fulfill that role. She wasn't able to be what I needed her to be in that space either. And so we had these series of conversations in which, I just asked her, like, why is it that you're allowing these people on your end, our family members, to think certain things about me and to not dispel these negative and false narratives about your and I relationship? You would rather me be under the bus and have these people have some of the worst things to say about me, when my wife and I did nothing but try to encourage you to come and live with us, to leave the lifestyle alone, to check into a inpatient treatment center, find yourself, get some help, and then come out, stay with us, live with us, and help us to raise our kids and to be a grandmother. And she told me that pretty much she didn't want to have anybody else in the family in her business. So she chose to leave everything the way that they spoke about me instead of defending and putting some truth to my actions, right? And so once we had that conversation, I said, I don't know how we got on the topic, but God's my witness. We were talking about her dying one day, and I believe it was because she had developed COPD, and so she was carrying around a little miniature oxygen tank, but she kept trying to sell it to me like it was just a temporary thing that her doctor said she just had to do for a period of time and that she was going to be fine. And I, being the Googler that I am, had went and did the research on it, and so I called her on it and was like, pretty much that's the beginning of the end. So we got into the conversation about death, and so when we reflected on a couple of our other loved ones who had passed away, and how that was a very, very, terrible time for the family. And even talked about a time when she decided during one of our family members' funerals to kind of speak her truth and to call out some of the individuals in our larger family tree that had victimized her. And we kind of went through that whole ordeal. And so she asked me something about speaking at her funeral, and so I told her that I didn't plan on going to her funeral. And immediately, as you can imagine, she didn't like that. She took issue with it. I could hear the hurt in her voice when she asked me why not. So I told her, I said, listen, I just want to be completely honest with you about this. And if you still feel a way about it after I'm done, then okay, cool. But at least allow me to explain, my decision on this and my thought on this. And so she allowed me to. And basically, I told her what I'm going to tell you guys now, which is I left there at 19 years old and never looked back because too many people in my family, in my bloodline, see it fit to victimize each other and to do the worst things to each other, to name a few things, you know, engaging in violence against one another, helping to promote a lifestyle that is terrible, selling each other dope, smoking dope together, uh, pedophilia, incest, all these things that when you start talking about it, people start cringing like, oh no, that's not anything that, you want to bring to light. It's a very, very embarrassing thing. But the bottom line is that has plagued the bloodline that I come from. And I'm one of the few that don't shirk from that. I'm one of the few that don't allow others to silence me on that and make me feel like we need to stick to the old script, which is don't say anything about it. My attitude is if something happened in the past and it was 10, 20, 30 years ago, whatever, and things have changed, fine. But this thing has persisted even to this current day with just the newer generations in my family. And I find it very disgusting. So for me, when I even think about some of the individuals that have engaged in those kind of practices and have pretty much victimized and taken advantage of vulnerable young ladies and women in my family, I keep their names out of it, but my heart is hardened the same. My heart is hardened the same way. It's a very, very disgusting thing, and I push back on that vehemently. So I told her, I was like, the bottom line is that when somebody dies, the normal decorum is that people get up and they start speaking all these good, memorable things, and even have this celebration of their passing, and it's supposed to be something that brings families together in their time of mourning. And the bottom line is I can't fit into that narrative. Like our family is just too fucked up for me to come and play that role. Like too many people in my family have had stuff to say about me behind my back and want to smile in my face or have stuff to say about her and I's relationship, but they literally contributed to the detriment of our relationship. Too many people, my family watched me struggle mightily as a child with the disconnect that I had with my mom because she was hooked on drugs and into that street life and alcohol. And they did nothing but, help to feed her those things. But then on the backside, question me about why I'm not doing more to try and help her out of that situation. They were enablers. And so we talked about that. But the bottom line is that I was not going to come into that context and look across at people that I know for a fact have taken advantage of her, have robbed her of her innocence, have betrayed her, have helped to push her down that hellacious road of the life that she lived. I wasn't going to stand up there and pretend like everything was cool and sweet and just give this hollow little rendition of a son who's paying tribute to his mother. I said, I left Seattle, Washington because I really, really felt in my spirit that one day somebody in my family would kill me or I would have to kill one of them just based on how angry and how much I disapprove of the lifestyles of those individuals and how much it burned me up that a lot of the men in our family allowed the women to be victimized and preyed on the women when you're supposed to be protecting them, looking out for them, et cetera, et cetera. So I said, there's no way I could stand up there and play that role. What I would do is I would call all of them on the carpet right there to their face. And if they had a problem with it, we could do whatever we wanted to do. And in no way, shape, or form is that the way that you're supposed to send your mom home or anybody else for that matter. So I said, so with that being said, I got to fall back. I just can't put myself in that situation. I got too much to lose. When you pass away, you've passed away and you've left whatever legacy you've left. But I don't have the luxury of being able to go up there and fight with these individuals and go to jail and lose all the things that I worked hard for because at the end of the day, I might as well have never left in the first place. And so after her listening, the first thing that she said in response was, well, say that then. And I said, I'm just letting you know because I try to be as transparent with you as possible is that I don't feel comfortable with what you've disclosed to me about what these people have done to you or they've helped you to do to yourself. And I've been very vocal about that. So for me, it's probably just best for me to sit this one out. And so, it wasn't as if she flat out was like, yes, hooray, that's the best thing I ever heard in my life. But she accepted it. She understood that. She understood that it wasn't coming from a malicious place. It wasn't coming from a place of not loving her or, from having a beef with her because everything that we had experienced together and everything that we had did to one another, we actually sat down and talked about it. We talked about it in great length. So I knew there was going to be some blowback from people in the family that, really, really are close to her. But the reality is I don't care about those people. Like we don't have relationships. Like if you don't hear from me ever, then you got to get a picture in your mind like this dude don't care about you. And I hate to say it in that callous of a manner, but it's the reality of things. I'm not the most reliable person when it comes to being in communication, every day or every week, and sometimes even every month. I guard my accessibility the same way I guard my privacy. But for those who I rock with, people that I respect, people that pour into me, people that help me through hard times, people that we have some form of connection, like I really take what they have to say to heart. But for the people that, don't matter to me in my particular space in life, I can care less about how you feel. And so I had, a couple cousins, aunt, uncle, feel it necessary to call me up, reach out to me, and question me about why I wasn't coming and telling me, no, I better be here and all that good stuff. But as you can see, I didn't show up, right? So what I've allowed them to do is to take that however they want to. What I do know is that I spoke my truth to her. I was honest and upfront with her. I feel like where I came from was very, very valid to me. Where I came from was from a real understanding that there's no place for what I would have brought into that environment and what the other individuals were there to do. They were there to pretty much send her home. And I don't know if any of them are remorseful. I don't know if any of them have really, really thought about how much they helped to contribute to her getting there. But I have. You understand what I'm saying? There's not a day that goes by in my life where I don't calculate in some way, shape, or form how things would have been different, if there would have just been a few more people that would have been in her corner before the fuckery, not after the fact, right? And, of course, I can't go back and do anything. I was a kid. I didn't know what I didn't know until I was told. And then even as an adult, I can't go and fight those battles with people, especially when she's still partying with them, still hanging with them, still, communicating with them, and in some instances, still, engaging in questionable activities with them. That's the life she chose. But at the end of the day, I looked at it like I washed my hands of it. The only person that I owed that conversation was her, and when we had that conversation, I had no clue that months later she would pass away, but she did. And so the thing that I do thank God about is that regardless of what others put together and piece together and what they assume on the outside looking in, having like literally no access to me, literally no understanding of who I am as a person, but in their mind concocting whatever it is that they want to say about me. I sleep well at night knowing that the only person that I owed that conversation to, the only person that I had to check in with about that was her. She heard it loud and clear. Like I said, I would like to absolutely believe that she respected it because she didn't say otherwise. We had communications after that. She understood that what I was saying was really who I am. I came from her, so she knows me, even though we didn't really have a lifetime worth of interactions. She still understands the ingredients inside of me because she created me. And so, it's one of those things that I don't shy from. I understand that some people flat out, when they hear that, are going to form an opinion. And then even people that have heard me out on it are still going to form an opinion. But what I do know is that this is my life, and I pretty much have license to live it how I want to. I get to pick and choose, who I have in my life and who I don't have in my life, just like everybody else. If there's those individuals, don't want to have me in their life based on, their aversion to, the way I move, who I've become, our lack of connection, that's cool. All I ask is just stay away from me. Don't speak on me. Don't worry about me. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Continue to live your life. Honor her. Hold her up. Hold her in high regard. Please make sure that you wished her a happy birthday today. And that honestly, if you was really, really rocking with her and you don't have a hand in her demise, thank you for, being there for her. But for everyone that knows in their heart of hearts that you were one of the reasons why she became what she did. You're one of the reasons why she ran to the street life, one of the reasons why she chose to self medicate and to try to erase the pain and, hide her feelings on things that were out of her control when she was a little girl, things that were out of her control when she became a young adult, and things that you guys, brainwashed her into thinking that that was her only worth. For those of you that are in on that, all I gotta say is, so I just wanted to take this time to just kind of like, share a little bit because I'm in one of those moods today. I'm being very, very candid with myself, and listen, I have license to do that. If you are rocking me up to this point, thank you for hearing my words. Hopefully, you understand that, like you and anybody else, there's a duality. There's multiple layers to who I am. I consider myself to be a good dude that does wrong from time to time. But one thing that's for sure is that I'm myself unapologetically. And when it comes down to betting, I'm betting on myself. So with that being said, thank you for rocking with me. I'll holler at y'all.